Hi everyone, I'm Hextasy, and today we're going to be playing through a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Black 2, only using Pokemon that violate the Geneva Conventions. We'll be looking at Pokédex entries to determine who is and isn't a war criminal, and you'll have to forgive me if I make some obvious mistakes. My education is in hospitality, not global hostility, and from what I've gathered, the war crimes we're on the lookout for are the indiscriminate destruction of people, the environment, and property, acts of violence towards civilians, non-combatants, surrendering troops, and POWs, meaning if a dex entry says it attacks without mercy, they are probably a war criminal. The use of weapons that cause unnecessary suffering, which I generally summed up to be the use of poison, fire, and electricity. Damaging infrastructure and supplies vital to the civilian population. Participating in collective punishment. That's right, my 4th grade teacher is a war criminal. Eat a bag of dicks, Mrs. Reed. Impersonating non-combatants or not being able to be identified as the side you're fighting for. Taking hostages, acts of cruelty and degradation, and finally, racism. We're going to speedrun making the list here, and there's a few things that are important to point out. First off, when going through Pokédex entries, I had the philosophy that having the tools to commit a war crime does not automatically make them a war criminal, which is why, surprisingly, Pokemon like Weezing were determined to not be war criminals. The Dex entry says it creates toxic gases, but it never actually says it expels them or uses them. Secondly, just because a Pokemon was once a war criminal or evolves into a war criminal does not make it a war criminal now. There's even some middle form Pokemon like Pignite or Lairon that evolve from war criminals into war criminals, but they themselves are not war criminals. There were a few Pokemon I was unsure if they could be counted as a war criminal or not, and in the end we came out with a solid but rather funky list of Pokemon we could use. With all the preamble out of the way, we can start the game, grabbing the only Univan starter with a disregard for the Geneva suggestions, Tepig, who we name after my favorite war criminal, Anakin Skywalker. They're able to thrash our rival once here in Aspertia City, and after passing through routes 19 and 20, where there were no war criminals to be found, we arrive at Flockacy Ranch to beat our rival a second time. We can't get any new encounters here at the ranch either, unless we come back later once we get the Surf HM, so we can fish up some racist fish to add to the party. Technically, there's also one war criminal we can get on Route 20 as well, but they can only be found in the dark grass down there, and this hiker won't let us pass without the first gym badge, so let's go battle Charon. He starts with a Patrat, and since we only have one Pokemon, we'll need to be smart about how we do this. We use a defense curl to boost our defense, while they use a workup to boost their attacking stats, and then we land an Ember, scoring a burn, which cuts their attack in half. We bring them low with another Ember before being hit by a weak tackle, and Charon then heals, but can't move again before Patrat goes down. His Ace Lillipup comes in, but a few Embers takes them out to win the fight. And now we can head back to Route 20 and enter the dark grass, where we find our next war criminal, a Venipede. The Pokemon that inflicts unnecessary suffering through the use of poison, and also discriminates against Sizzlipedes. We throw our Pokeball, it breaks free, and lands a critical hit, one-hit kill. Well, that's a reset. We get a new Anakin the Tepig, beat our rival twice, Charon once, get back to the dark grass, find a new Venipede, and this time, we're the ones to land a critical hit, one-hit kill. Bruh. But at least they aren't the only encounter we have before the next gym. Passing through Verbank City, we arrive at the Verbank Complex, where we find R2-D2 the Magnemite. a Pokemon that disrupts civilian life now and as a Magneton when it evolves, but seems to develop basic empathy when it becomes a Magnezone and stops being a colossal asshole. R2 was holding the Metal Coat when we caught them, an item that will boost the power of their non-existent Steel-type attacks, so we start training them, and just as they reach the level cap for the next gym, they learn the Steel-type move, Magnet Bomb. So let's go test it out against the second gym leader, Roxy. With R2's solid special attack stat, the Metal Coat, and the same type attack boost, I'm expecting this to do big damage to her coughing. Well, that was underwhelming. I would later find out that Magnet Bomb is not actually a specially offensive move like I believed it to be, but is actually physical. But it's no big deal for now, since we can just use Sonic Boom, a move that always does 20 damage, easily taking out Coughing, and Roxy's Ace Whirlipede to win us the fight. Next up, we get to trudge through the Pokestar Studios portion of the game. Whoever decided to make this mandatory should be locked up as a war criminal. Afterwards, we take on Team Plasma, ending the encounter with Anakin hitting level 17, high enough to evolve. Now, Tepig is a war criminal for using fire in combat, but Pignite, on the other hand, just sets themselves on fire, and I could be wrong here, but I don't think self-conflagration is violating the Geneva Conventions, so to be on the safe side, they'll be staying as a Tepig until they can fully evolve. We take a boat to Castelia City, and immediately hop into the sewers to team up with our rival to hunt down Team Plasma. We catch Aura the Rattata on the way through, bring the smackdown on Team Plasma, and then head up to the Castelia City Park where we begin hunting for our next encounter, an Eevee. They themselves are not a war criminal, but they can evolve into 3 different violators of the Geneva Conventions. We grab them and name them Dooku, and we then head into the Relic Tunnel to nab Adi the Drillbur, Annihilator of Crops, Bringer of Famines. We then clear out the 3rd gym, and since we've seen 40 Pokemon, we get the Eviolite item, which will be really helpful for our Pokemon who can't evolve, or those who have extended level gaps thanks to them becoming a weenie once they evolve into their middle stage and begin respecting life. But there is one Pokemon we can evolve right now. We bike around in circles for hours to build up friendship, and then evolve Dooku into an Umbreon, toxic war criminal in the Pokédex and the competitive scene. It's now time to take on the 3rd gym leader Berg, and he starts at the Swadloon while we start with Anakin. We land a Flame Charge, just missing the KO and boosting our speed before Swadloon uses String Shot to remove that speed boost. Berg heals, but it's useless, and Swadloon goes down to a 2nd Flame Charge. Dwebble comes in, so we swap to R2 as they use Rock Polish to double their speed. Then land a few Magnet Bombs that I still haven't realized are physical to take them out, and finally, we have to deal with his Ace Liavani. We survive a Razor Leaf before paralyzing them with a Thunder Wave, then swap to Anakin, who earns us the win with a couple Flame Charges. We then head up north to Route 4, have our first fight with Colress, where Anakin gets paralyzed, and decides to let Magnemite beat on them for 5 minutes before they finally decide to fight back, and solo his entire team of 2 Pokemon. Further up on Route 4, we catch Savage the Sandile, who goes out of their way to attack the sick and wounded, a big no-no under the Geneva Conventions. Then we hit up the Desert Resort to catch Shaggy the Scroggy, who is a viable encounter thanks to their habit of indiscriminate violence towards anyone, civilian or not. We could head into the Relic Castle to grab a Yamask, who evolves into the war criminal Cofagrigus, but we'll pass on that for now, and you'll see why soon enough. We head down Join Avenue to Nimbasa City and head east to Route 16 where we catch Satine the Gothita, who won't be committing atrocities until they evolve, and in the Lostlorn Forest we get a second chance at a Venipede, and we're lucky enough to not murder them, So we catch them and name them Tipley. R2 then tries to learn Mirror Shot, and I finally realize Magnet Bomb isn't specially offensive. So we replace it and we can finally start dealing damage with steel moves. Unfortunately, in the same battle as the one they learn it in, we get hit by a 5-hit Fury Swipes, one of those blows being a critical hit, and Mirror Shot is strong, but not enough to get a 1-hit KO, and R2 dies to a Pursuit. We also almost lose Anakin since we accidentally bumped into every trainer trying to get back to Nimbasa, and despite the loss, we still have one more Pokemon to catch. This time, west of Nimbasa on Route 5, a Trubbish named Java. We then make it through the old Nimbasa gym, watch Savage tear through the new gym, and I realize we actually forgot to name them, so we trek all the way back to Castelia to remedy that. And we then evolve Tipley all the way up to a Scolipede before starting our 4th gym battle. Elisa, the electric-type trainer, starts with an Emolga, and we start with Savage, who takes them out with a couple crunches, activating our Moxie ability. Anytime they KO a Pokemon, their attack is raised a stage. So her incoming Flaffy has no chance to survive our dig, further improving our attack and ensuring her Ace Zebstrika doesn't stand a chance and goes down to a single dig to win us the fight. We try to leave the city, but have to throw hands with Team Plasma once more, and once we make it to the next city, we get to deal with even more Team Plasma shenanigans. One of the former Team Plasma higher-ups tries to give us a Zorua, and I was on the fence about them being a war criminal since their dex entries say they impersonate others, but only to escape danger, and looking back, I definitely would have deemed them a war criminal now. But while recording, I decided to not use them, and instead we'll just banish them to Detroit. But missing out on them isn't a big deal, because we can just head up to Route 6 to find a Pokemon we'll actually be using. We use a Repel to make sure we don't encounter any of the myriad war criminals on this route until we find the guaranteed one we want, a Fungus named Embo. We then evolve Adi into an Excadrill, no longer bringing the famines, but now destroying public transit systems, and about to help us destroy the 5th gym leader, Clay. Clay starts with a Krokorok, who has the Intimidate ability, dropping the attack of Tipley, who we are starting with. We move first and use a Screech to cut Krokorok's defense in half before we get hit by a weak Bulldoze that drops our speed. But we're still faster and land a Bug Bite for the 1-hit KO. His Ace Excadrill comes in, and we swap to our own Excadrill on a Rock Slide. It is a critical hit, but still doesn't do much damage. We're faster thanks to being able to grind up some speed EVs, and we use Dig, scoring a 1-hit KO, and all that's left is his Sand Slash. We swap to Embo, who loses half their HP to a Bulldoze before our leftovers heal us, and then we get hit by a critical hit Crush Claw, killing Embo before they could even move. Needless to say, Embo is not going to heaven, and their corpse will be banished to Detroit alongside Zorua. We bring Tipley back in, land 3 Screeches, only surviving thanks to the Oran Berry we gave them since we had no other item to hand out, and we poison them with our Poison Point ability. We can then swap to Dooku, who just misses the KO with a bite, but Sandslash then goes down to poison damage to win us the fight. We then take on the PWT, fighting our rival, Charon, and Colress with his wacky-ass haircut, destroying all of them with just Adi. We board a pirate ship, take on Team Plasma again, and then some ninjas teleport us off the ship. So it's time to get moving and head up through the Charged Stone Cave, where we catch Trench the Joltik, who isn't currently violating the Geneva Conventions, but will soon. We make it to Mistralton City, where we meet up with Professor Juniper, who gives us a Master Ball, and we move up to Route 7, where our encountered war criminal is a Zebstrika. I have the genius idea to take out some of their HP with the high crit chance move Slash. It takes out a little less than half their HP, so let's use another high crit chance Slash. Turns out we got a low damage roll on the first Slash, and the second one was higher, killing Zebstrika. But at least we didn't get a crit. We arrive at the Celestial Tower next, where we catch Barris the Litwick, and I realize now it's time for us to get our Relic Castle encounter. We run back through the Chargestone Cave, through Route 6, fight this trainer we missed, and this trainer we missed, go across Route 5, bump into this trainer we missed, go down Join Avenue, head into the desert, use our rappel, enter the Relic Castle, and hit a dead end. I was very confused since I've never actually bothered to come here in my previous playthroughs, and it turns out we're supposed to enter the Relic Castle through the Relic Tunnel. So we have to run back through the desert, fight this trainer we missed, back up Join Avenue, across Route 5, into the Relic Tunnel, accidentally go too far and end up in the sewers, escape rope back to the start, find the Relic Castle entrance, and use the Master Ball to catch Fordo the Volcarona, an enjoyer of indiscriminate violence that causes unnecessary suffering. Also, it turns out Volcarona's level up moveset is straight cheeks until we're well past the level cap of the champion, and we never end up using them. I should have just settled for a Yamask. We take the long journey back to Mistralton, evolve Trench into a Galvantula, Anakin into an Embor, Shaggy into a Scrofty, Satine into a Gotharita, who will never be seen again since they have been locked up for holding children hostage, and finally, Jabba into a Garbodor. And now we can take on the 6th gym leader, Skyla. We start with Adi against her Swoobat, who hits us with some weak heart stamps while we use Hone Claws to boost our attack and accuracy. Adi is holding the rotten apple core we found in the sewer, allowing them to heal at the end of every turn, keeping them close to max HP before landing a one-hit KO Rock Slide. Her Ace Swanna comes in, and hits us hard with a Bubble Beam before going down to Rock Slide, and all she has left is a Skarmory that suffers the same fate to win us the fight. Afterwards, we evolve Savage into a Crocodile, and then get into a plane and fly across the region to Lentimus Town, which is bordered by Reversal Mountain, which is absolutely crawling with war criminals. From those like the Drapion line who use poison and attack civilians, to those like Grumpig who will strip away your free will while emoting over you. But we end up catching the Kidnapper, Bosk the Driftblim. We then hit up the Strange House where we catch Watto the Golbat, and with the help of Bianca, head through Reversal Mountain and arrive at Undella Town, where we have another rival fight. But my homeboy gets absolutely dunked on by Trench and Bosk for an easy win. We head north to Route 13, where we spend 5 hours running around, waiting for tall grass to start shaking and murdering the Audino population, until we find the war criminal we have our eyes on, an Emolga named Cody, guilty of indiscriminate attacks. We then arrive at Lacunosa Town, where we get to sit through a lore dump before 2 Team Plasma bigwigs challenge us and our rival to a fight, Zinzalin and Grunt. Our rival Samurott sits there with their thumbs up their ass while they watch Shaggy wipe out all of Zinzalin's Pokemon, before we swap to Adi to take out all of Grunt's Pokemon. Winning here gives us access to Route 12 where we catch Leia the Roselia, and the Village Bridge where we find a Seviper, a Pokemon so racist against Zangoose that it's literally built into their DNA. The only name befitting a hater of this magnitude would be Pongkrell. Some old man on the bridge says he's on a 999 win streak, and somehow he has not encountered a single Fire-type Pokemon until now, and Anakin annihilates his team. We pass through to Route 11, where we catch Nalase the Zangoose, another Giga Racist, but this one will be important. So while we catch Holdo the Muck on Route 9, let me tell you why. We will need Surf to progress through the game, and catch plenty more war criminals, and so far, none of our Pokemon could learn Surf, but Zangoose actually can. We open the bag, and why can't they learn Surf? Bulbapedia said they could learn Surf. Did they lie to me? It turns out they didn't lie, but Zangoose can only learn Surf in Gen 9. So with a heavy heart, in order to progress through the game, we'll use a Pelipper I caught earlier in case we couldn't get a Surf user. Someone I couldn't pass off as a war criminal. We use them to surf in Burbank City, where we find Qui-Gon the Frillish, who we can now use as our dedicated surfer while Pelipper is sent to Detroit. We can now surf to the Mistralton Cave, where we can't see anything besides the grievous crimes committed by Bo-Katan the Aeron. Before leaving the route, we pick up the Shiny Stone, then head back to Lentimus Town where we can get the Dusk Stone and the Strange House. And this is where I messed up big time. The recording for the next portion of the game got corrupted, and I can only guess it's because I was messing with my clock so I could get an encounter on the next route. So you'll have to just put up with a few very poorly drawn pictures for now. So we change the clock so it's winter, and head back to Wendella Town where we begin searching in the water for our next encounter. Eventually, we come across a Staryu who isn't a war criminal, making me realize we're in the wrong spot. So we swim 5 steps to the right, so we're in the Undella Bay, where we catch Obi-Wan the Spheal. We then evolve Obi-Wan into a Walrein, Qui-Gon into a Jellicent, Bo-Katan into an Aggron, and use the 2 stones we picked up to evolve Leia into a Roserade and Barris into a Chandelure. We set the clock back to normal, and you can tell it's no longer winter because the birds are no longer flying south. We head to the Opeliacid City Gym to take on the resident Giga Chad and G-Dilf Drayden. We ride the world's slowest dragon elevator up at... Oh, hold on, I forgot to draw the mustache on this one. We ride the world's slowest dragon elevator up, and the fight really wasn't too bad. There were no deaths, even though Jabba tried really hard to die without doing the one thing I needed them to do, badly poison his Flygon, but we win in the end and earn the next badge. A flying pirate ship then appears in the sky, shooting ice at the city. Hold up, that's not the right color. Drayden is unfortunately hit by a shard of ice and dies, but we manage to avenge his death by chasing Team Plasma off. We are then rewarded by being given the MacGuffin Triangle, and I think I got the color scheme right on this. Turns out I didn't, but it then gets stolen from us by the ninjas from before. So we return to Undella Town where we go through the Marine Tube, a massive fishy tunnel that kinda reminds me of your mom for some reason. We arrive at Humalau City, where we get to fight the 8th gym leader and terrorist sympathizer, Marlin. Leia beats his Caracosta and sets up toxic spikes before Cody beats his Wailord and Volt switches to Qui-Gon for a 1v1 against Marlin's own Jellicent. But ours, of course, comes out on top to earn us the final badge. We then head south to the Seaside Cave where we spend an hour looking for our next war criminal, a Dynamo named Hera. Finding this thing took so long that we actually ended up finding a shiny Woobat first, who we of course caught and sent to Detroit. It's here where I finally stop the corrupted recording and start actually getting footage. Just in time for you to see us evolve Hera the Dynamo into an Electros. We board Team Plasma's ship, fight Zinzalin and Grunt again. Surprisingly, our rival actually helps us this time. We get kicked off the ship by the ninjas again, and it then flies away. We head to the giant chasm to finish off Team Plasma, catching a Piloswine who will never be seen again on the way there. We have yet another battle with Zinzalin, and would you look at that, he lost. We then battle Colress for the final time, but Savage absolutely styles all over his team, easily soloing them. And we finally meet the big bad Getsus. He has the ninjas fight us instead of teleporting us away like usual, and we escape to challenge them in a cave where he tries to murder us. And saves us, Kyurem powers up, and we have to stop them before battling Getsus. We'll be using Shaggy since that's who we want to start our battle against Getsus with, and they have to survive a fusion bolt before landing a brick break to take out nearly half of Kyurem's HP. They then start charging up a freeze shock, but never gets to fire it off since they get taken out by a high jump kick. Right after is our battle with Getsus, and he starts with his Cofagrigus against Shaggy, who we immediately swap out for Dooku, who gets hit by a Toxic. Their Synchronize ability activates, badly poisoning Cofagrigus, and our Pecha Berry cures us right away. Oh my, how the tables have turned. We then use Bite for decent damage, but Cofagrigus' Mummy ability activates, replacing our Synchronize ability, and they try to badly poison us again, but misses. We then use Dig to dodge their next attack while poison damage racks up, and we come up getting hit by Shadow Ball. Cofagrigus barely survives poison damage, and Getsus uses a full restore as we use Bite. Cofagrigus then uses Toxic, badly poisoning us, and we can't poison them in turn since we no longer have Synchronize. The tables have turned once again. We try to take them out ASAP, but Cofagrigus uses Protect every other turn now. So we start using Moonlight on the turns Cofagrigus protects to heal us, and biting on the other turns, and eventually Cofagrigus goes down and Drapion comes in. They use X-Scissor, just missing the KO, and inheriting the Mummy ability, and we use Moonlight to heal, but it doesn't matter, and Dooku dies to an X-Scissor before they can move again. We bring in Savage, who uses Dig, just missing the KO and being infected by Mummy. So we can't get a Moxie attack boost now. Drapion barely survives and hits us with an X-Scissor for half our HP, and we then use Mud Slap, which Savage still knows for some reason to take them down. Savage levels up and learns Earthquake, which we use to replace Mud Slap, and Seismitoad comes in. We swap to Trench on a Muddy Water, and then land a one-hit KO Energy Ball. Electros comes in, so we swap to Savage on a Flamethrower, and we should be able to survive one more and use Crunch for solid damage. The second Flamethrower hits, and it's a KO. Savage goes down. We bring Anakin in, and their Flamethrower just misses the KO, so we take big damage from an Acrobatics before finishing them off with a second Flamethrower. Hydreigon comes in, so we switch to Obi-Wan on a Dragon Rush, which misses. They outspeed us and use Rock Slide, which also misses, and we land an Aurora Beam to take them down with a critical hit, and all he has left is a Toxicroak, who we can beat with a couple Surfs to win us the fight. We step out of the cave and see the giant chasm is no longer covered in ice, and I remember the Ice Beam TM being around here, so we started looking around. We eventually find the Psyshock TM, and I begin to question if I was mistaken. Nope, it was in the entrance. We start heading down Route 23, getting the Flamethrower TM and catching Quinlan Voss the Bouffalant, and we have a quick chat with Anne before we make it to Victory Road, where we catch Kreia the Bayonet, who will never see the light of day again. At the end of Victory Road is our final rival battle. He starts with an Unpheasant that gets destroyed by Trench's Discharge, and Simi Sage is brought out just to go down to Signal Beam. Bouffalant comes in, and Discharge takes out less than half their HP, and we get hit hard by a Head Charge. We use Volt Switch, just missing the KO, but swapping out to Hera on a Head Charge that they handle better. Our rival heals Bouffalant before we land a Spark because we don't have the Thunderbolt TM for really good damage, and we barely survive one more Head Charge and take out Bouffalant with a Flamethrower. All that's left is Samurott, who survives a Spark before taking out Hera with a Revenge, But now Trench comes in and finishes the job with a discharge to win the fight. Our rival then gives us the Thunderbolt TM. You know, I don't think it would be crazy to say Hera might have lived if you gave that to us sooner. But we arrive at the Pokemon League and begin making final preparations, including running around in this cave for hours on end until dust clouds appear, and we hope they give us the shards we're looking for. And after a long grind, we get more than enough. We then enter the PWT to do rental battles to build up some BP. Naturally, we'll only be using war criminals, so we back out until we can create a team of nothing but war criminals to take on the PWT. Bruh. Well, after another long grind, we have enough BP to get some good items and TMs. With preparations complete, we'll be going in with a final team of Shaggy the Scrofty, Audie the Excadrill, Trench the Galvantula, Quinlan Voss the Bouffalant, Qui-Gon the Jellicent, and Bosk the Driftblim. So let's get into it. Starting with the Ghost-type trainer, Chantal. She starts with Cofagrigus, and we start with Shaggy. If they hit us with a status effect, our Shedskin ability has a chance to cure us. We move first and land a Crunch, just missing the KO, and there goes Shedskin. I did not think this through as well as I should have, but luckily we're just hit by a Shadow Ball, and despite Chantal healing, we can take out Cofagrigus before it can move again. Golurk comes in just to go down to a Crunch, and Chandelure is up next. We swap to Qui-Gon as they use Fire Blast, not dealing a whole lot of damage, and we then swap to Audie on the incoming Shadow Ball, which we resist. And then we land an Earthquake for the KO, and all she has left is a Driftblim that goes down to 2 Shadow Claws to win us the fight. The Psychic-type trainer Caitlyn is up next, starting with Musharna, and we keep things rolling with Shaggy. We use Crunch, just missing the KO but dropping their defense, and then we get hit by a Yawn and we'll go to sleep on the next turn unless we swap out. So we bring in Quinlan Voss as Caitlyn heals Musharna. We go for a Mega Horn and miss. Musharna hits us with a Yawn, but we don't care about Quinlan Voss going to sleep, so we land a Mega Horn for the KO and fall asleep as Reuniclus comes in. We switch to Bosk, who's immune to the incoming Focus Blast, and we land a Shadow Ball for well over half their HP before being hit by a Psychic. Then land a second Shadow Ball to take them down. Sigilyph is up next, and their Ice Beam nearly takes out Bosk before they get brought to the yellow by a Shadow Ball. So it's time to swap out. We bring in Audie, luckily on an Air Slash that doesn't do much damage, and a Shadow Claw takes out Sigilyph, and all we have left to deal with is Caitlyn's ace, Gothitelle. Earthquake takes out half their HP, but then their Citrus Berry heals them, and they use Calm Mind to boost their special stats. Another Earthquake brings them to a quarter HP, and they use Calm Mind again, but they won't be able to use those stat boosts since a third Earthquake takes them out to win the fight. The Dark Trainer Grimsley is next, and we start with Quinlan Voss against his Liepard. We lose close to a third of our HP to a Fake Out and Night Slash before landing a Mega Horn for the KO, and Scrafty is in, so we swap out Quinlan for Bosk, who is immune to the incoming Brick Break. We then miss a Will-O-Wisp before being hit by Rock Tomb, dropping our speed. We're slower than them now, and get hit hard by a Crunch, bringing us below half HP. We land a Will-O-Wisp to burn them, we swap to Shaggy on a Crunch that barely hurts them, and we're relatively unthreatened now if our Brick Break fails to KO. But it doesn't fail, and Grimsley brings in his Ace Bisharp next, just for it to get one hit KO'd by a Brick Break. All that's left is his Crocodile, and we easily outdamage them with a few Brick Breaks to win the fight. Next up is, in my opinion, the strongest Elite Four member in any of the Pokemon games. Marshall, the Fighting-type trainer. He starts with Throw, and we start with Trench, landing a Thunderbolt for decent damage before being hit by a Rock Tomb for a little less damage. A second Thunderbolt brings them into the red, and it's a little questionable if we'll survive a third Rock Tomb. Marshall heals and we land one more Thunderbolt before Volt switching to Quinlan Voss, who gets their speed dropped by a Rock Tomb and they are now slower than Throw. They get hit hard by a Storm Throw, but then land a head charge to take out Throw. Mian Xiao comes in and we swap to Bosk as they use Bounce. We try to go for a Will-O-Wisp, but we get paralyzed by Bounce and can't move. We get our Will-O-Wisp off the second time they use Bounce and begin to very slowly set up stockpiles to raise our defenses, while Mian Xiao keeps bouncing. We keep getting fully paralyzed, and once Mian Xiao runs out of bounces, Marshall swaps to his Ace Conkeldurr just as we finish setting up our stockpiles. They bulk up and we go for Shadow Ball, avoiding using Will-O-Wisp since Conkeldurr might have the Guts ability. And a few turns later, Conkeldurr goes down and Sock is in, who we can burn and take out with a couple hexes. Mian Xiao is back in, but they can't hurt us, and goes down to Hex to win us the fight. Finally, we're up against the champion, Iris. She starts with her Hydreigon against Quinlan Voss, who has to tank a Dragon Pulse, not losing too much HP before landing a Mega Horn for the one-hit KO. Druddigan is out next, missing a Focus Blast, while we land a Head Charge for massive damage, forcing Iris to heal and get hit by a second Head Charge. They once again survive and then land a Focus Blast to kill Quinlan Voss. But now we can bring in Trench, who finishes the job with a Signal Beam. Iris sends out Archaeops next, a very fast Pokemon, but not as fast as Trench, who beats them with a single Thunderbolt. Aggron is in, and we Volt Switch, swapping to Audi as Aggron uses Automatize, doubling their speed. But they're pretty slow to start with, so we should still outspeed— oh, they used Earthquake. Audi is brought down to 69 HP, nice, and we land an Earthquake of our own for the KO. Her Ace Haxorus comes in, outspeeding us and landing yet another Earthquake to kill Audi. So we bring in Bosk. Haxorus uses Dragon Dance, and for once we don't miss our first attempt at a Will-O-Wisp and burn them, causing them to deal rather little damage even with their boosted attack stat, and a couple hexes takes them out, and our final Pokemon, Lapras, is in. We land a Shadow Ball for a fourth of their HP before Bosk dies to an Ice Beam, and we bring Trench back in to finish the job with a Thunderbolt to win us the fight and the run. And it looks like we were able to beat the game using only Pokemon that, to my understanding, violate the Geneva Conventions. There is definitely debate to be had on which Pokemon should or shouldn't have been used, and if I do another Warcrime run in the future, I'll take that into consideration. Anyways, I've been Hextasy, and thanks for watching.